Welcome to this brief video in which we'll be previewing the WWEM event that will take place 9th to 10th of October at the NEC this year in 2024. And I'm delighted to have with me today Oliver Grievson, who's Associate Director at Atkins Realis and a visiting professor at the University of Exeter. And Oliver has been kindly helping put together the conference for this year's WWEM event, water, wastewater, environmental monitoring. And so thank you very much for joining me, Oliver. Perhaps you could start off by telling us what the main themes will be this year.
Well, you know what? There is so much going on at WWEM this year to welcome it to its new home at the NEC in Birmingham that we've absolutely jam-packed the schedule. So again, I believe it's the 10th year of the regulatory monitoring stages. We'll be talking about wastewater flow and bills to the environment through in day one in the regulatory monitoring stage. Day two, we'll be talking about Section 82. And we've got as we did last time, we've got the Rivers Trust taking over in the afternoon. And again, that real focus on rivers, on regulatory monitoring and the future. Massive programme of work coming up with Section 82. Anyone who's interested in that, the monitoring upstream, downstream overflows, WWEM is a must go to event. But we've also got a digital water stage. And we've got various organisations taking over elements of the digital water stage. We're going to hear from them in later videos. But we've got SWIG taking over, looking at implementation and how we deliver that into the industry. We've got BIM for Water doing a fantastic showcase of what they do every day. We've got a cybersecurity showcase by the Institute of Measurement Control. And we've got a university showcase being led by Peter Melville-Shreve, the University of Exeter. We've got Exeter and Sheffield and Cranford University all doing sort of what they're doing in research, what we need to do in research moving forward, and the great stuff that's going on in the industry. That's going to be happening on the demo stage, the third stage, where we've got showcases on river water quality monitoring. We've got showcases on innovation. We've got the university showcase. We've got the International Water Association doing digital platforms. There's really so much to go to at WWEM this year that it's going to be a jam-packed couple of days. On top of that, we've got the learning zones as well. So the special learning zone this year, Section 82, we've got technologies that are going to be used within Section 82 to monitor all those river water quality. And we're showcasing the 15 or 16 companies who are working with the water companies to work out what technologies are going to get used in the next 10 years or so. So realistically, it's the event to go to for MCERT, for all sort of water, wastewater, environmental monitoring. There's just not a better place to be, and it's going to be a jam-packed event to welcome us to the new home for WWEM at the NEC.
So I remember last year it was standing room only when Philip Dunn was talking about the requirements of the Environment Act, Section 82, as you said. And at that stage, it was all relatively new. Well, it was brand new, but it was causing a lot of excitement in the sector. Now that we are 2 years further down the road, and presumably those people in water companies and other organisations that are going to be responsible for implementing the requirements of the Environment Act, I'm assuming, therefore, that the event will be the perfect place for them to find out what's available, to have a look at the kind of technologies that are on offer, and to presumably see some real-life demos.
Absolutely, it is one of the main focuses of WWEM this year, because the industry is going to have to start delivering next April, and it's a massive, huge program with lots of things still to answer. So yes, at WWEM, but we're looking at all the potential technologies. We don't know what technologies are going to get used for Section 82. Reality, it's probably multiple different technologies, and they're all going to be there. So I know the water companies are banding together to have a look at the bit of trials with the WRC, have a look at some of the potential technologies. All of them are going to be presenting that they've all got in the learning zone. So for engineers who are going to be dealing with this, perfect place. They're going to be doing 1 hour demos of all the technologies that are potentially going to be used. And that is there to help the industry to understand these technologies a bit better, to understand what the potentials are, what the potential pitfalls are, and everything. And it's just going to be an open conversation about it, because quite realistically, none of us really know. There's a lot of chatter about it, but we've got to have that conversation, which we're going to have at WWEM, about the Section 82 monitoring, about storm overflow monitoring, about FFT monitoring. It's all going to be there. All that regulatory, there's a real focus on regulatory monitoring and how we can use digital platforms, but there's also going to be an element of learning in there. The learning zones were set up at WWEM by me about 6 to 8 years ago, and they were there for the engineers in the industry to get hands-on with the instrument, to learn, because otherwise you go out in the field, you don't know, an instrument may be new. WWEM's the place to learn about it. That's what we're setting up for everyone in the industry to come and learn, to understand and have the conversation, but also how we translate that into insight, how that looks into digital platforms. Everyone's talking about sensing as a service at the minute. Maybe it's that. We'll be having those conversations. Maybe it's a digital platform within a company. How do we choose that company? Well, some of them are going to be demonstrated at WWEM.
Now, a lot of that, obviously, there's going to be a lot of noise about river water quality. Now, with the background being the water companies proposed massive expenditure in AMP8, with that in mind, is that likely to drive expenditure for other types of monitoring, not just rivers?
I think quite possibly, yes. I mean, it's why we've got the Rivers Trust. The Rivers Trust came last year. They took over the regulatory monitoring stage in the afternoon. Really need to listen to our stakeholders, and that's why they're there. Talk about the great monitoring work they've been doing via Castco. Really important stuff. But also, some of you may well be aware that there's been some talk about public health monitoring, so bacteriological monitoring. And we've got that at WWEM too, believe it or not. The regulatory monitoring stages featuring some of the technologies. Funnily enough, in Section 82, it starts talking about and any other parameters, which always makes me a bit nervous. One of the things that potentially is going to be in there, and I don't know, potentially you're going to have bacteriological monitoring. It's the state of the art, probably needs a bit more development, but we've got some case studies being talked about at WWEM on the regulatory monitoring stages of technologies that are being used. How can the water industry drive that innovation going, if it's going to happen? How can we understand what the technologies are and help companies to develop more practical solutions? So some of the solutions at the minute are quite expensive, quite big and bulky, need lots of maintenance. How do we change that? How do we look at the conversation and say, right, okay, this technology as it is at the minute, there's potentially going to be a market. If there is a market, how do we drive those technology developments? How do we drive that innovation in sensing technology?
Yeah. And if the water companies are investing in infrastructure generally, is that going to drive a requirement for more monitoring in clean water and in process monitoring and control?
There's been talk about it over the years. I think the next 5 years, if I look at it, 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot of work on the wastewater side. The potable side, still very important. Don't get me wrong. I think that technology has been very well developed, but there'll be needs there as well. But the main focus, I think, within the next AMP is that sort of wastewater monitoring. There's great work being done on the wastewater network in terms of sewer level monitoring, which 5 or 6 years ago was unthinkable. And yet you've got companies that now who are doing some great work on using machine learning and artificial intelligence in sewer blockage detection. I'm not going to mention in particular companies, but they're out there. And guess what? The development of wastewater monitoring in the past 5 years has leapt on. And again, it's going to be within the conversations at WWEM this year.
Okay, great. So who are the people that should be coming to WWEM? And what are the main reasons why they should visit rather than, I don't know, surf the web?
Well, to be honest, everybody should be at WWEM. It's the water industry. Monitoring has got much larger and much more. There's huge investment in monitoring. for the next 10 or 15 years. Monitoring only tells us part of the story. Why come to WWEM itself? Again, there's demos, there's demonstrations, there's learning zones, there's chance to chat to all of the suppliers at WWEM. All the suppliers who are the suppliers that come into the industry, they're all at WWEM this year. New bigger home at the NEC enables us to do more. And every time I say to WWEM, I'm not going to do more, I end up doing a lot more every single time. And we've got such a fantastic program. But the conversations that are going to be happening at WWEM, I remember last WWEM, we first heard about UMON 6, the UMON 6 driver on storm overflows, emergency overflows even. That was the first time we heard about emergency overflow monitoring at WWEM last year. Now, those sort of conversations are happening, and it's only through having those conversations together that we'll have at WWEM that we get to develop the industry that bit more. So who should be there? All these strategists in the water companies. It's a great place to be. Definitely absolute must for all the engineers. My plea to all the water companies, we know skills are going to be a problem in the future in the industry. All your technicians that you can do hours and hours and hours of training at WWEM, all in a 2-day period. You could probably get 6 months worth of training in 2 days at WWEM, and technologies that would take months to do. You'll see all the new developments, all the new innovations, and all those technicians out there. If they can make it, brilliant. Because I certainly took the technicians when I was working at Anglian Water a few years ago. My instrumentation technicians came to WWEM, and they came back buzzing with ideas for the next few months. All the supply chain partners. I know I years ago, again, when I was at Anglian, somebody from the supply chain, the framework people within water companies, there was somebody from Anglian came. The feedback from her was, I managed to get 6 to 9 months of meetings done in 2 days. So the time saving, taking those 2 days out of your day job, come to WWEM, have those conversations is invaluable.
Yeah. And actually, that's a good point. And something I always say with these events is there's so much going on. The workshops, conference presentations, meetings on exhibitors' stands, all that sort of thing. It's so important to plan your visit in advance. So that you and I just have discussed this, we plan our day 5 minutes by 5 minutes, and it's so important to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, if you see me at WWEM, I'm usually the one who's rushing around like a lunatic, but it is such a great event. Certainly the feedback from people last time was they absolutely berated me because they wanted to be on two stages at the same time.
Yeah.
Some of the events will be recorded with videos available. In fact, videos from some of the stages last time are still available. And actually, some of the big announcements there's some really big announcements happening at WWEM, and you're going to want to be there to do it. But yeah, it's important to understand planning, because it's going to be big this year. But actually, being at the NEC, it's really accessible. It's going to be in Hall 2 of the NEC, which literally come out of the station, go into the NEC, and it's there for you. So really accessible to everyone. My offices are in Birmingham. You can be at the NEC within 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. I know Severn Trent's offices are in Coventry, again, 10 or 15 minutes. You're at WWEM.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. We could talk all day, Oliver, but we better not. So thank you so much for your time. The last thing I'll say is that registration is now open. So go to ilmexhibitions.com and register to visit WWEM. As I said,
and of course,
plan your
Graham,
visit.
The important part is it's free. It's free to visit.
It is. It certainly is.
Yeah.
I know, and also it's you get AQE as part of the deal. So if you're involved with environmental monitoring generally, you can also have a look at the air quality and emission sector. So in terms of monitoring, it's difficult to think of a more important event globally, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Graham.
Look forward to seeing you in October.
Definitely see you in October. Cheers, Graham.